So with question number 15, and this is on page 114, it says a 25 kilogram block very slowly raised up a vertical distance of 10 meters by a rope attached to an electric motor in a time of 8.2 seconds. What is the power developed by the motor? So if we draw our picture, right? So if this is our motor here, and it's maybe pulling up this rope from this pulley, and we have our 25 kilogram mass. So if it's slowly, I'm going to say that it's moving upward at a constant velocity. And so what that means is that the net force is going to be 0. So we're going to have two forces in here. We're going to have a tension force, we're going to have a gravitational force. We know if the net force is 0, that the sum of those forces has to be the same. So tension minus the force of gravity is going to equal mass times acceleration. My acceleration is 0, so my tension then equals my force of gravity. Now, if I want to know how much power, right? So power is the idea that it's work divided by time. And what I can say is that the work done by the engine is the force of the engine, or which is the tension force, right? So the engine, because, well, let's just do this, right? There's tension here as well. And so the engine is applying an equal force as the tension. And so the force of the engine is tension. Let's get rid of this work there. So how much then work is done by the engine? Well, that's force of the engine times distance. My distance that I raise it, S, is 10 meters. So I can just plug all this then into this equation here. So my power is going to equal the force of the engine times the displacement divided by my time, which is simply going to be 25 times 10. That's my gravity times 10 divided by 8.2 seconds. And I'm going to get a power equal to 305 watts. Okay, so what that tells me, what is 305 watts tell me? That tells me that each second, the engine does 305 Newton meters or joules of work. That's what that tells me, right? So essentially, that tells me that the potential energy of the block changes by 305 joules each second. Right, so that's a way that we can then figure out kind of how fast it's going if we needed to. Another way is just using distance divided by my time. But that's kind of how we relate this idea of power. 305 watts, that means the engine is doing 305 Newton meters of work each second, and the energy of the block is then going to decrease by 305 joules per second. Actually, it's going to increase because it's gaining potential energy as it's lifted up.